tonight. And I will start by introducing our guest speaker, Chuck Gahun, who serves technology executive and digital business leaders for Forrester. He focuses on strategies, execution, and evaluative research that helps leaders build the right digital portfolio that benefits the business and promotes a positive customer experience. His coverage areas are content management systems and digital experience applications, platforms, and services. Chuck research aims to enable leaders to drive values by harnessing the power of digital content management, intelligence, collaboration, and delivery application and platform. And on the Via Medici side, we've got Al Bismayer, who serves as Via Medici's vice president. Al Bismayer orchestrates the business strategy and market entry across North America and Western Europe. Leveraging his leadership experiences at Microsoft, Commerce One, Emerson, and IBM, Al has spent 30 years guiding executives in maximizing market shares by effectively utilizing emerging technologies. His proficiencies in deploying SAP, Microsoft, MDM, PIM, and CPQ solutions and numerous business excellence accolades that underscores his contribution to pioneering solutions that confer a competitive advantage and drive cost saving. So after this introduction, let me ask you, do you have anything to add? Al, maybe?
Yes, Dan. I'd like to just give the audience a brief overview of Via Medici, a thumbnail, before we get to the valuable information that Chuck will be sharing, because many people probably don't know who we are. So with that, I'm going to just give a quick overview of Via Medici. We actually are obviously a software technology provider. We have a multi-domain solution, our MDM solution that consists of product information management, digital asset management, and dynamic configuration or guided selling. We are a global company. We've been expanding very rapidly in North America and Asia, and we have a very strong presence in the European market. We've been fortunate enough to actually have received a number of awards and acknowledgement by a number of the leading analyst firms for technology. Recently, we actually won an award, which I was very proud of, which was an emotional award, which was provided or awarded to us based on customer feedback. And basically, the emotional award said we were a leader in terms of doing what we say we'll do and delivering and having successful implementations. So being a very easy organization to work with to get to the end goals that they're working towards. And to that end, we have a 99.3 customer retention rate throughout the life of our company. We've been in business for 20 years, and we work with our customers to do successful implementations. This is a subset of the types of customers that we have. We are known for working with large manufacturers on a global basis. A typical profile of a customer has about $1 billion in revenue or more, $10 billion, multiple regions that they're working with. They are localizing the product into 40 to 50 languages. Many of our customers are using SAP or Oracle as their backends, and obviously working with Salesforce as a CRM or Dynamics as a CRM application. We work with companies in building supply is a very hot area for us. The medical technologies and healthcare segment is very strong growth. We're seeing a lot in electronics and consumer products, as well as retail. So you can kind of get a sense of the representative companies that we work with. This is our platform, and I'm not going to go into great detail because we want to listen to what Chuck has to say. But I do want to point out a few things that are kind of interesting. One is that all of the solution sets that I've discussed are in one platform. And as you can see, we have AI and ML services represented within the stack. We also have business process management, or BPMN, which is a advanced workflow technology. It not only works within the application, but works outside of the application for anything within an organization for an approval process as you're moving things through. And then we actually manage all the assets, media assets, product content and data, and then the channels that are required, as well as putting the information into a real-time data store. So once the information has been approved and it's it's put into an in-memory data store that's available to everybody. And last but not least, we have the configuration capability built into the solution. So the CPQ and dynamic or guided selling is part of our stack. And so that's a very unique thing. We're really the only company that provides all these things in one solution set across the board. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chuck, who has quite a bit to share with us about his Forrester.
So thank you for this intro, Al. And before Chuck present the result of his finding, I would like to remind everyone that you will be able to request the insight of this presentation. We will flash a QR code at the end of this presentation, so stick with us. And also, if you want to ask any question, if you want to tell us where you're joining from, feel free to do that using the comments panel. Chuck, the mic is yours.
Thank you, and thank you, Al, for having me on the webinar. So let's start talking about PIM to get a little bit more detailed on what our research is showing. The recently released PIM landscape shows that PIM systems are now significantly contributing to revenue growth by enabling enterprises to manage by onboarding, enriching, and syndicating their product information from what we call the single source of truth. According to Forrester's 2022 B2B e-commerce forecast, B2B e-commerce penetration will reach 24.4% by 2027. And and that is up from 16% in 2021. Additionally, the 22 online marketplace tracker predicts that 68% of global B2C commerce will come from marketplaces in 2023. So to summarize there, B2B e-commerce penetration is going to reach new heights by 2027. And also B2C e-commerce is going to hit a new level and new heights, being 68% by the end of this year. With that backdrop, PIM solutions are the foundational capability for enterprises to meet growing consumer demand on e-commerce channels and marketplaces with accurate product information. And that includes product attributes, images, videos, and even spec sheets. Some of the key findings from our recently published landscape report are that there is an explosion of channels that is happening, which is forcing syndication within enterprises. So with e-commerce experiences gaining adoption and 92% of US online adults using 5 or 6 connected channels, PIM solutions are now serving product information to customers across digital channels, and interestingly enough, also across print publications. By developing advanced analytics at product and category levels, enterprises are now able to provide insights into product performance for better product placement and enhanced customer experiences. So that's sort of the first finding from the research, really the explosion of channels forcing syndication. The second finding is really about lasting business models needing flexible data model and change management. And what this really uncovered is that successfully implementing a PIM solution to power the entire product journey, right beyond the PLM. So from ingestion of product information to enrichment to syndication to even getting analytics and reusing that is as much of a change to people and process as it is to technology. PIM solutions need to future-proof themselves and have extensible data models and comprehensive change management plans. And finally, I would be remiss if I didn't discuss AI in 2023. Our research around AI and PIM solutions are finding that it substantially reduces time. They support ingestion and enrichment to further impact business performance, and they can also substantially reduce time to market and increase efficiencies. As large language models continue to grow in adoption, PIM vendors are using AI to replace suppliers' onboarding to format product information by tagging and classifying it accurately. And they're also leveraging it to think through how they can syndicate and map their product information to more digital channels. Let's maybe move to the next slide here, Al. So the established use cases for PIM now have even more application in market. The established use cases that you see on screen between syndicating and increasing reach, reducing returns, improving product data, and supplier data onboarding are the true tried and tested ones. There are a few emerging ones that I'd like to just highlight briefly. So gaining insights from digital shelf analytics. This is quickly becoming a capability growth area as consumers demand more personalized experiences on the edge. And at the same time, businesses need to deliver on that ask, but at the end of the day, they need to move product. So what I like to remind folks about when you're selecting a PIM or evaluating a PIM or even using the PIM you have in-house, the objective of a PIM is to move product, not list products. So when you come at it with that mindset, it's clear where deeper insights become key. The second one that's interesting to note here is the explanation of application of products to increase sales. So I think the best way to explain this one is through an example. Think of a semiconductor manufacturer. When an electrical engineer is building a new electronics component, he or she might need to understand things like the heat dissipation of each semiconductor that's available on market, right? So this depth of product information and application of how the semiconductor has been used to create electronics components can help the electrical engineer make decisions faster, resulting in more sales of semiconductors and eventually more sales of the electronics component as well, which is the finished good in this story. Guess what? PIMs are that central source of truth that capture and syndicate product data, but might also have a deeper application-based, rich product information that can be surfaced for folks like this electronic equipment manufacturer. And the final one is selling spare and replacement parts and complying with regulations. As we move towards more eco-friendly products, spare and replacement parts are going to become more and more prominent, as will transparency on all source materials that go into creating a finished good or even a food item. This transition in our society at a larger scale will require enterprises to sell any kind of product that are selling any kind of product in market to have a PIM capture and keep this level of product information up to date. And I think that's where the last two use cases will really come into play. The next piece that I'd just like to share briefly is, we should discuss the impacts of generative AI on the PIM ecosystem of vendors and also what it's doing for brands, retailers, and distributors in market. The business impacts are really around increasing employee productivity, which makes sense. You don't have to code and rekey as much romance copy as an example. It helps with brand consistency in market and obviously decrease time to market as well with new products. These reductions aim to increase business performance, and the three areas that it's having the significant amount of impact for businesses is new customer acquisition, largely centered in the B2C schematic, account and customer growth, which is pretty heavy in B2B from what we're seeing, and finally, geographical expansion, where brands, whether they are distributors, retailers, or even brand manufacturers, are now able to expand into new geographies that would have taken them months to get their product information out to in the past. The adoption of generative AI capabilities in these three pipelines, copy, rich media, assets, has quickly accelerated into experimentation phases. And you can see on the screen where there are a few key areas where product information is really being created and managed a lot better through generative AI. Al, I've said a lot. Why don't I pause there? Why don't you share a little bit about Via Medici's AI enhancements in this area and what you're doing through this era of AI transformation that we're going through?
Thanks, Chuck. Yeah, so one of the things that's been interesting is AI obviously is extremely hot right now, and everybody's been talking about it really since November with ChatGPT coming out. But we've been working with AI and ML for years, actually, and our customers have been gaining a lot of benefits through the use of AI technologies. We actually have a AI component, as I had shown in our architecture, And one of the things that companies are looking at is what are the things that are proven where they can get an immediate benefit within their organization. So here's a listing of all the different things that we are working on with our customers. Automated translation is certainly something that's being done with localization, image recognition and classification, labeling, and pairing it up with existing product data is another thing. And being able to crop and manage the imaging for these various products for our companies with very large portfolios is extremely time saving and actually leads to the accuracy of the product information that they're putting out. And then the automation of the product data. This is more exploratory. This kind of gets into what you were talking about, where companies are using ChatGPT and actually looking to have that in concert with their product information and have text that's surrounding it. And so most of our customers actually are piloting or looking at the effects of this, but they haven't really built out what the return on investment is for this type of thing at the moment. Another area that's not as textual based is really the categorization of product data. So the classification and categorization using algorithms that are associated from an AI and ML perspective, and then automation detection in terms of any anomalies that are existing within the data that you have or holes to ensure quality control, personalization of the content, recommendations. And then interestingly enough, there are some companies that are doing prediction or forecasting and the utilization of AI with some of this stuff. And so those are the areas that we're concentrating on and that we have part of our solution stack. And what I did is I actually pulled out an existing customer of ours to just give you a flavor of what they were able to do with proven AI technologies. So this is a global customer of ours. They're about $10 billion in revenue and about 35,000 employees. Their real focus was really time to market. They wanted to be able to get product out to the market much more quickly, and they wanted to be able to get the information out to all their different channels more effectively than they had in the past. And they deal with all types of channels. They have marketplaces, retailers, they have tradesmen and A&E firms, building construction groups that they work with. So lots of complexity. They have over 1.4 billion records that they're dealing with and very large product sets. So extremely large in terms of the number of products that they have and the number of jobs that they have to process. And so their goal was really to drive this reduction. And what they did is they used our AI and ML capabilities in concert with our PIM solution to actually reach and exceed the goals that they had originally outlined. And if you look at the listing here, I kind of highlighted what they did with regards to AI. So they did automatic translation. They localized to over 45 languages on a global basis of their content and product information that they're using. They utilize image recognition with regards to the product data that they're doing to facilitate product introductions, as well as cropping and anomaly detection to ensure quality of the data that they're doing. So those are the things that they did, and they got a greater than 70% reduction in time to market, as well as the costs that were associated with that. In addition, the business value, which is even more so, that they received from usage with their distributors and craftsmen was over $100 million is what they calculated. And the BIM capabilities was also over $100 million. So in terms of building information management systems with the A&E firms that they were utilizing. So huge returns. From an AI perspective, two of the things that they are exploring with ChatGPT is the product data. So there's a bullet there. And product categorization is another one that they're going to be rolling out. But those are fledgling and more something that they're working to test at the moment. So with that, I'd like to turn it back over to you, Chuck, because I know you got some other findings that you want to share with the team.
Yeah. So as you know, everything we've shared to this point is about, our expectations around PIM, onboarding, enriching, syndicating, now even using generative AI to, help with product information, get it a lot more streamlined, accurate, and syndicated to more channels. As we start thinking about where PIM is going next, what is the next frontier of PIM? What are the capabilities and what is the red thread that we're going to weave through it? It really does come down to revenue generation, growing businesses, and adding a ton more value to the bottom line. So why does this matter and why is this going to evolve this way? Well, buyers are expecting a mix of personalized content and self-guided digital discovery when researching purchases, right? So CPQ solutions are at the center of that, and they will focus more and more on delivering richer customer experiences in the late evaluation and decision phases of the buying journey. Today's market is causing buyers to spend more and more time considering purchases, but when they're ready to go, they expect immediate, customized offers with accurate pricing that is made and written up just for them. And buyers demand dynamic solutions and optimized pricing, but also they want simple and rich experiences that are easy to navigate. Successful B2B digital commerce requires automated solution generation, optimized pricing, and the future of CPQ solutions also have AI and machine learning built into them so that they can drive these digital journeys even better. As we're looking at some of the key reasons why a CPQ sales portal is important to a business, the three that come top of mind are increasing seller productivity and effectiveness in the CPQ process. So removing friction, making the manual steps go away, and helping to boost sales productivity and deal conversion is what the CPQ sales portal is all about. It simplifies the process of getting the target price, which may include previously negotiated discounts or entitlements, and many times come from very specialized or managed price books. When streamlined, this will reduce cycle time, enabling firms to get a proposal to the buyer faster with the right offer at the right price. So you can see how seller productivity makes sense. Next one is around extending optimal configuration pricing to channel partners. So while we're talking about the sales reps, you have to keep in mind that sales organizations are also looking to increase the effectiveness of their channel partners and resellers. And they can leverage a common configuration engine, not only to configure, but also using the price books and the pricing that we just discussed to create quotes that brand manufacturers, as an example, would be comfortable having in market. This enables partners to provide more consistent, accurate, and professional responses and grows the channel business, which, guess what, in turn grows the brand manufacturing business. And finally, providing a superior self-service experience to buyers is just as important. B2B buyers especially spend more time than ever researching online before speaking with the sales reps. And that's if I abstract away the complexity of B2B buying groups today. So it's critical to allow buyers to manage and engage themselves in your digital experience. And that means giving them the option to configure and price their own offer on their own. The buyer experience, the configuration rules, the pricing logic should all be centralized rather than siloed to improve program agility, offer deployment, price effectiveness, and so on. So as you can see through some of those reasons and just our discussion around CPQ, the opportunistic overlap between PIM and CPQ is massive to create custom configured product experiences that matter, especially in complicated B2B buying scenarios. Al, why don't you share a little bit about what the Via Medici product is incorporating around CPQ capabilities in PIM?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, when we looked at the platform, our CPQ solution is integrated with our PIM solution, as well as the MDM components. And really, we're seeing an explosion in CPQ and dynamic configuration or guided selling, if you will. I think that consumers have become Amazoned in many respects. They expect to be able to configure the products that they want. They want the system to be very fast and responsive, and they want to make sure that the system allows them to come to conclusion and actually order a product that can be delivered to them by the next day or within the next few days. So fulfillment is another key component of this. And what we're seeing with our solution, there are certainly some differentiators, which I'll get into in the next slide. But one of the things that we're seeing is that it's not just B2C customers, actually, increasingly it's B2B customers. more and more of the B2C folks, it's kind of like, I think I liken it to, when people used to bring their iPhones to work, and people ended up locking that down because they were more productive bringing those into the house. The same thing holds true to people ordering things from a B2C perspective. I think in the B2B realm, more and more consumers or end users are able to actually configure the products that they want, and they just as soon not have a salesperson in some respects. So the idea is that they can go directly, configure the products that they want, and then order those products. And we're seeing our customers do that a lot more. So it's not just the empowerment of your internal sales expert, it's the empowerment of your end consumer. And how do you ensure or give them confidence to be able to do that configuration? Well, one of the things you do is you ultimately put guardrails on it. So you make it so that when they're working through their selections, that they're actually, the selections are guided. And if they go to make pick an attribute or something that's not viable, it comes back and says, hey, this isn't something that you can do, but maybe you want to do this, that, or the other. And so as they go through that configuration, they have the option of either submitting it themselves or having an internal expert review it, which is another uniqueness in terms of what we provide. Chuck, you want to share some more?
Sure thing. So let me see if I can bring this all together. You all are here because the conversation is around growing revenue through a PIM. And I want to land the plane talking a little bit about what we call dynamic guided selling. These tools simplify the identification and qualification steps by assessing buyer interaction data, so digital and human, to identify buyers with the highest propensity to buy, prioritizing those opportunities and suggesting next best activities to make the sales reps a lot more effective. So early stage pipeline, as we all know, is one of the least rewarding areas for any sales rep because the effort required to progress deals is like that of a late stage deal, right? Let's be honest, but it yields a lot lower results. So reducing the effort involved in early stage opportunities to expand the top of funnel increases sales outcomes at the end of the day. For example, if it takes 10 attempts on average to progress an opportunity in early stage pipeline versus 3 in the late stage, sales operations and sales reps are more motivated as well to spend their times on helping to close those 3 opportunities. So without this support, reps are unlikely to be super motivated to spend a lot of time in early stage opportunities. But with tools like dynamic guided selling and thinking through business strategies around that, you can really impact your business in 3 different ways. So the first one is you can obviously maximize deal velocity and sales rep capacity, right? So your business becomes optimized around these guided selling tools. It helps them create momentum in market, reduce delays in the sales cycle. And finally, as buyers will start to see this purchase cycle happen, and even other sales reps, they will start to follow the same process, whether it's a purchase process or whether it is the actual process of how the deal was closed. So sharing this insight helps enable sales reps to work together more collaboratively, increasing deal velocity, not only for an individual rep, but across the organization. I think the second point that's really interesting to note about guided selling is it helps enterprises gain more understanding of the buyer's needs and how they can increase the deal size, right? So PIM and CPQ capabilities, if you think about it, for everything we have discussed to this point, are the foundational element that help get us there. With the PIM, you understand the product information, the data, the attributes, the spec sheets, the images, the lifestyle videos, what have you. And then you move into CPQ where you're actually able to configure that, price it, quote it for yourself. And what if there was an overlay of some amount of guided selling that is helping you align your sales reps alongside the CPQ process and the PIM discovery parts of the cycle, so that during a purchasing cycle, the buyer's goal obviously is to get the best solution, but your sales team's goal is to help the buyer think about how not only that product, but maybe products or larger scale of those products can help them solve their business challenges in a little bit of a better way. So as an example, if a high percentage of similar customers have bought a product that are not included in the sale, a sales rep who knows what they're doing can easily go and engage the buyer about the benefits of the additional products. So simply, the buyer now has that knowledge, can continue down the cycle, but also is purchasing more from the seller than they would having just gone through their journey. I think this is a really simplistic but good example of guided selling at play and how it can increase the actual size of each deal. And finally, guided selling is really big in creating visibility into digital and customer interactions that help reps better understand their buyers and what is needed to improve win rates in general. As direct interactions with buyers decrease, and let's be honest, we don't purchase products the way we used to anymore. We usually go to stores, and even in B2B cycles, we contact the representatives when we know what we want to purchase. We're trying to find out the last bits of the data we need to wrap up the deal. So in this information age that we are living in, which is now only going to accelerate even further through AI, the question is, how do we get to know our buyers better, and how do we align their needs with deeper insights that can help them achieve more and can increase our win rates, right? So as an example, if multiple people in a buying group have researched a specific product and then engaged with the rep to discuss the solution, sales operations can help provide this insight to the representative, who can then use it to better position themselves to win the deal. So there's a lot of plays you can make like that around guided selling. So when you put these three things together in a string, having PIM and CPQ work together in harmony with guided selling and more of a strategy as of an overlay, we are really going to start making serious strides towards offering buyers, especially in the B2B landscape, with capabilities to impact bottom line sales volume. So going back to my original point, and I'll leave you with this, I like to say this: the objective of a PIM is to move product, not to list product. And when you start thinking about it that way, it becomes pretty simple to look for strategies that are around you, but also feature sets of CPQ, as an example, that can help you grow and increase revenue for your business. Al, I know Via Medici is doing some great things in this area. Why don't you share some of those and maybe a customer example or two for the audience to take away some more bits from this, yeah?
Yes, thank you, Chuck. As a matter of fact, just listening to you, Chuck, a lot of what you said really mirrors a lot of what our customers are doing with our solution set. And it's interesting, this next example that I'm going to give actually talks about the maturity of the sales force and their use of CPQ to get up to speed on their own product set, and then ultimately how they were able to roll it out for their end customers to actually utilize it. So there is a lot more value add and a lot more pull-through sales as a result of this, not only with regards to the initial product launch, but also in terms of additional products or the total bag or cart that they were taking out when they did the purchase. One of the things that we see is many of our customers are looking at the use of CPQ and guided selling, as you mentioned, for both sales and as well as their end customers or anybody within their value chain. So it may be a distributor or maybe somebody who's reselling their product set, but being able to go in and actually work with the product and have it be easy, intuitive, and productive almost immediately. They want the solution to be extremely fast. And one of the things that we do that's very different in our solution set is we allow you to start anywhere in the process. Without getting too technical, we have a declarative rule set, and there's a lot of thought that's gone into the development of our solution set. But what that ultimately means is that you can actually start anywhere in the process. A lot of the CPQ solutions that are out there in the marketplace, they're sequential. You start at the front, you pick a car, and you add things as you're moving through its cycle. In our situation, you can actually pick the attribute that's most important to you. You may pick, I want something that has large wheels as an example, and it's going to recommend a truck or a Jeep or something along those lines and build upon it based on the attribute set that's important to you. The other thing that is important, or that we've done from a technical perspective, is we've actually made it such that you must complete something before you move on to the next step. So it's more modular, and when you're going through your configuration and making selections, you'll either include or exclude things that can be or attributes relative to a specific product set that can be included as part of your configuration, which is extremely productive. And what it ultimately means at the end of the day is that when somebody does a configuration, it's actually orderable and fulfillable. And I've talked to a few customers about some of their other CPQ solutions they've used, and they're like, well, customers can order the product, but then they find out, they get an email 2 or 3 days later that, hey, you can't fulfill it, sorry about that, which really hurts the customer experience and satisfaction. And that's not an issue with what we do. So I think this next example is going to be pretty interesting to everybody. We have a global electronics manufacturer. They're about $3.4 billion in revenue and have about just shy of 19,000 employees. And one of the things that they were doing is their goals was to have a successful product launch. They had actually tried to introduce this product in the past, and it couldn't really get off the ground at all. And one of the reasons that it didn't get off the ground was because it was too complex for their sales force to really get their head around it, and they were selling other things that were easier to sell, quite frankly. And so what they decided to do is actually go and look for a CPQ solution in concert with the PIM application to be able to address their requirements and to be able to sell this product set. Now, the other thing that's interesting about this customer is they have 3,000 products and over 2,000 product combinations per product line. So you can see there's a lot of different variables and variants that's associated with this. And they wanted to be able to roll this out specifically to their sales force. And one of the things that we do as part of our solution is our CPQ component is headless, which means the UI can be customized specifically to the sales team. And you can actually go in and allow selections for a sales expert, and they can go in and do their configurations based on that user interface. And so as a result of that and the utilization of dynamic configuration, they were able to do a product launch. And within the first year of go live, they got $750 million of sales. Now, the thing that's more interesting is not just what they originally anticipated in terms of the configuration and the sales and the loyalty that was associated with that product set. What really fascinated them or surprised them was the percentage of cross-sell and bundling that went on with regards to this. So when they actually went in and introduced the product, they got over a third of their additional revenue from like products or components that complemented the product that they were configuring, which was not expected. They were actually just thinking it was going to be specific to the product that they were working with. And so within the first year, they had 3,000 salespeople that were working with the solution across the globe. And then they actually started thinking about this, and they're like, well, this has been so successful. What we should do is we should actually roll it out to our end customers because they know what they want, they can configure it. So they modified the UI and made a simpler configurator for their customers. And the customers went in and were able to actually configure the products that they wanted without sales intervention. And what they have the ability to do, and they did initially quite a bit, is they would configure the product and then they would pass their configuration into an internal sales expert who would review it within his application. And if he wanted to make additions or that type of thing, he could do so. If he didn't want to, then he would approve it and the order would be placed. Well, what they found out is that a lot more of their customers than anticipated ended up just placing the orders directly over time. So now the customers actually do the configuration and they're doing the purchasing and the complementary or additional product sets with regards to this, utilizing the configurator. And so this, as you can see, all the different check marks as to what they're doing from a configuration perspective. They're looking for, speed, inline configuration, direct feedback in terms of alternatives, attributes, or attribute sets that could be utilized. And they want it to be orderable and fulfillable. And they also want to be able to print and have a full bill of material that's associated with this so that they can put that into the ERP. As a matter of fact, I didn't really mention that, but within the configuration application, you can actually create a new product set and then you make a new key and it's sent to the ERP system. So you're truly developing products in lot sizes of one that didn't previously exist within their ERP application for fulfillment. So with that, that's kind of the customer example. I'll turn it back over to you, Stan, with any questions that we may have. Stan? Hello?
Yeah, sorry.
Hi.
The audio on my side being not too good, I will ask my colleague Sandy to ask the question for you. And maybe Al, you can move to the next slide so people can scan the code in order to receive the key inside. Yeah, thank you so much.
Sure.
And by the way, you can all ask questions using the chat panel. Sandy, fire away.
Thank you. So the first question we have would go to Chuck. You've analyzed 23 PIM vendors. How do you segment the market, and in which category do you put Via Medici?
So we took a look at 23 vendors, as you said. We segmented the market looking at revenue primarily, and vendors responded with their different geographical presences, and so on. Via Medici is within, from our perspective, in the medium to large spectrum of those groups. They are a big enough player that they have a lot of PIM capabilities to bring to bear, and that's where we place them. I think, we will have further evaluations around the PIM category that will shed even more light on capabilities, but that's just the initial broad brushstrokes to answer your question.
Thanks, Chuck. There's another one here. You're discussing AI and CPQ emerging solutions in PIM, but I'm interested in hearing how companies can ensure success in their basic PIM implementations, and what are the key steps successful companies take when implementing a global PIM solution?
It's a good question. I'll lean on my experience before coming to Forrester, but I'll also definitely lean on my experience and what I've observed while I've been at Forrester. Product information management implementations, PIM systems, are very heavily baked in change management for organizations. They're a fundamental change to how people do their work. And you have to understand that the genesis of the individuals working and the changes that you're setting out to make is for folks that had to adapt to mechanisms of an evolving marketplace that caused them to enter spreadsheets a certain way, keep different versions of spreadsheets in different geographies to feed different types of retailers or distributors. And so as you have seen this proliferate in market, and as PIM systems are starting to bring it all back together into the enterprise, it is a natural challenge that most organizations face during their implementation to think through the change management aspects of this correctly. And that is, I hate to say it, but that is really what makes a strong PIM implementation versus one that you have to come back to in 2 or 3 years. And the reason why I bring that up is because I have spoken to a lot of clients that have called into Forrester that have been asking about, hey, I had a PIM implementation 2 years ago and no one's really using it. Like, should I be evaluating other PIM software? And, we like to give the guidance on thinking through their change management and how their operational processes are running before they run, way headlong into a new PIM implementation. So hope that answers it.
Thank you, Chuck. We've got a question here from an attendee. Tassin is asking, could you kindly share an example with relation between PIM and CRM?
Sure. I'm happy to take the first pass at that. And then Al, if you want to chime in as well, feel free. Product information management being out on shelves is really, it's got 2 components to it as it interacts with the CRM, or your understanding your customer relationships. So the first one is obviously, as a customer is browsing, if you have any idea of who the customer is, and if you're able to capture any of that information, it's good to capture it so that you understand and how you can curate their experiences further around the product information they're accessing. Of course, the sidebar being that once you know what Chuck has accessed, as an example, you can continue to message offline, do personalized marketing automation, so on and so forth. But sort of PIM and CRM, the first use case would be around capturing that data, my intent, what products have I been looking at. And the second one, as it goes further down, the simplest use case I'll share with you is, after Chuck has purchased X product, many companies know the cycles of general purchases and when spare parts or additional parts might be required, and they start messaging users like myself who might have purchased a product with adjacent products that might make sense, but also spare parts and replacement parts that would make sense for he or she to consider. So those are the two that come top of mind that is really powered by the CRM side of the house as part of PIM. Al, what are your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I think I've seen a lot of different use cases for PIM in concert with CRM. I think the two that you alluded to are definitely most common. Usually it's having the appropriate product information that's centralized and standardized that's being utilized by the CRM application and vice versa. What I'm seeing more of with PIM and what I call component-based e-commerce as well as CRM is actually where a customer comes into an e-commerce application and that, hey, they've already purchased this specific product and that they need to do maintenance on it. So which components are they going to be utilizing? The product data has been feeding from PIM. It's also in the CRM, so the salesperson can go in and actually get them up and running, and that's coming through the web application or the e-commerce application, I should say, into PIM as well as to the CRM. The other thing I'm seeing, which is more, it's really outside of the PIM side, but we see quite a bit, is it's the MDM. It's actually having the customer, or the CDI, customer data integration, the customer component, as well as the product component, and what's being consumed, and having those two tied together so that you can optimize the customer experience through the use of an MDM/PIM application with a CRM application. So we see that quite a bit with Salesforce as well as Dynamics, and that use case is always there.
Thank you, Al. Thank you for answering this question. We've got a LinkedIn user here, no name, asking with using the automated translation in PIM, will there be still a need for translation management tool? Can it complement it or replace it? What do you think?
So the answer is yes. I mean, there's no substitute for localization. And actually, I would say that is true for a lot of this AI stuff. I mean, when I think about AI, I think of AI as a tool set. And so, and actually to use an analogy I've used with different people is if you're a carpenter, whether you're using a nail gun or a hammer, and you're trying to bind two 2x4s, you still need to know that you need a 3-inch nail to do so. If you use a 1-inch nail, it doesn't matter whether you're using a nail gun or a hammer, you're not going to bind the wood. And the same thing holds true for these tools. When you go through and use a translation tool with AI, you can actually get pretty daggone close. But what ends up happening is because of local terminologies or dialects or things, you would have somebody review that. So let's say you're at 90%, you get it to 100%, and then what you do is you take that translation and you put it into a data dictionary, which becomes the standard. So then anytime that you redo that for localization with future product sets, then you're there. And that's actually how you optimize and streamline and get your rollouts more efficient over time. So the answer in short is you still need the human eye, but you're getting there much more effectively. And that's with all this stuff, whether it's generative AI, getting some, a basic draft done and then having to expand upon it, and I liken it to using Grammarly as an example. You may be a decent writer, but Grammarly can come in, they can fine it up for you. And then you can make the selection as to whether you take the suggestion or not. And I think that's going to be more and more what we're going to see is people that are good at what they do are going to become better and more efficient through the utilization of these tool sets. But it's still not going to take away the need for the human interaction and the creativity and the review, if you will.
Yeah, thank you, Al. We've got a question for Chuck, I think. You spoke about AI. Do you think AI will replace or will it empower job in e-commerce marketing and sales?
Empower jobs in e-commerce sales and marketing?
Can you repeat the question,
Yeah, will
Stan?
it replace? Yeah, sorry. Will AI replace or will it empower those job categories?
Oh, I think it's going to empower 100%. I think there's going to be a lot more work to do. That's what most people are understanding. They think that when systems can generate romance copy for product information, as an example, you don't need as many copywriters. But some of the recent research that I just am concluding on AI that will release here in the coming weeks and months clearly depicts that there is a significant need for folks that are doing copy aggregation and review to review what has been created by these machines before putting it out in market. So it's sort of like more of a transgression and a shift in the role than it is actual loss of jobs. But going back to your original question about what it's going to do in bigger picture, this is going to impact all of those categories heavily from what our data is showing. And there's going to be more and more need for folks to be engaged. And that's because of two reasons from a labor profile perspective. Obviously, there's a rise in AI and the AI era, as we're calling it. That makes sense. But there's also a post-pandemic, there's a tremendous shift to digital experiences becoming the de facto rather than in-person experiences. And that's going to only continue increases. So when you start looking at both of these threads, even things like e-commerce that were prevalent but not as common early on before the pandemic are now going to see larger scale over time. And so naturally, the jobs surrounding that are going to increase.
Thank you, Chuck. So we are getting at the end of our session here. If you in the audience still have a question, fire away. If you don't, I will recommend that you do scan those QR code here to get in touch with Via Medici on the left and to download the key insight on the right. So make sure you scan those QR code. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We had quite a crowd. Thank you, Chuck Gahun from Forrester, for those very interesting insight into your recent report. Thank you, Al, from Via Medici.